Well, thank you guys. What a great experience, start to finish. This has been incredible. The team here is, you can't even describe them. From the moment we step foot on campus, you guys are blessed. And I just want to tell you from the bottom of my heart, on behalf of my wife and I, thank you, Pastor Frank, for the invitation and the honor of speaking here. And when I found out Pastor Frank was going to actually be here, made me a little nervous because, he's your pastor and he's here, so that's cool. But going back, thinking back to where Pastor Frank started, I was there for his very first sermon at Potential Church. And watching him prepared for that sermon and, him kind of having those butterflies that you have when you're going to speak in front of a large group of people. And then watching those butterflies go away and watching him deliver a message that changed hearts on his first try kind of got in our hearts that, Pastor Frank was something, he was being used by God in a very special way. And you guys know that. You guys come here every week and get to hear from his heart and his passion and his family's passion. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, Pastor Frank, you are a living testimony to the power of God. And thank you for what you do and the time you put in. But I also want to confirm something else. It's amazing when I see you guys come out today. You ever feel that nudge from God in your stomach? Like you feel like God's kind of telling you to do something. And then most of us kind of either turn up the radio to drown it out, or we ignore it, or we put it off. Pastor Frank was feeling that nudge to leave Potential Church and start something new up here in Wellington, and he acted on that nudge. And he said, God, I don't know where this is going to lead, but I'm willing to go. I'm willing to follow your lead, and he's done that. And so I'm thrilled, beyond belief, and honored to be here today with you all. And Pastor Frank, thank you for the time and the honor. And I want to share something from the bottom of my heart today. Again, my name is Brian Vassal. I've been a pastor for a long time, and started out as a middle school teacher, so this kind of feels neat. Anybody ever teach in a middle school? Extra jewels in your crown in heaven, right there. They are an acquired taste for sure, but great humble beginnings. And I've been a pastor for a while. We entered ministry back. I've been going to Potential Church since 96 attending, and then 98 on the staff. And what a great joy it is to share. I want to start off by asking you a question, as I always do. If you can take notes with your phone if you want, or write something down. I'm a note taker, so for me, because I want to remember it all, but I tend not to, because what's going to happen tomorrow? It's going to be Monday, right? And this kind of goes away. This stuff, we want to retain it, but if we don't write it down, at least if I don't write it down, I forget. Look, I want to start off with a question. How many of you have finished, I can see some of you, how many of you have finished your Christmas shopping already? Anybody? 3. You guys better get cracking. It's coming up, 9 days away or something? So if you have finished, or if you're in the middle of Christmas shopping, if you do that kind of thing, I want to give you some Christmas statistics. For example, 15% of the people that you give a gift to don't want the gift you're giving them. Did you know that? 15%. 8% of the people you give a gift to don't forget or don't remember anything that you gave them. So what am I saying here? That 1 in 4 of the people you're going to give gifts to this Christmas either don't want it or won't remember it. Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry Christmas. Isn't that a great start? Now, here's why I bring that up. I bring that up because today we're going to talk about a gift that you can give this Christmas that can absolutely change your family forever. They'll never forget it. They'll never forget it. They can't return it, and they certainly want it. Today we're going to talk about the topic of family forgiveness. And I know you guys are in a series. We're in a series here at Promise Life called Unity, a crystal clear Christmas, unity through our, what? Differences, right? What greater place to have unity than your family? But I know as I look out here, I can almost hear when I bring that topic up, there's a lot of walls go up. It's like, well, you know what? You don't know my family. You don't know what they did to me. You don't know what I have to work through to get to that point where I can forgive. Well, we're going to unpack a lot of things today. We're going to open some presents, which is cool. Y'all like doing that? I mean, I'm going to open them, but you're going to enjoy it through me. But we're going to enjoy it together. Family forgiveness, the key to unity during Christmas, the Christmas season. Now, as I was doing some study for today, I ran across some articles about, that big fire, the big fires they had in California not long ago. The fire in the north was called the Camp Fire. And it was started, it started burning up a bunch of acreage. It burned up 400 square miles. Now you think about that, 400 square miles of land. And of course, the fire in the south, in the southern part of California, was called the Woolsey Fire. And it burned up about, I guess I wrote down in my notes, 100,000 acres. And unfortunately, people lost their lives. As I started investigating these fires, I really wanted to know what started that fire. What was the big starter? And I found out they're still doing investigations, but they think that the fire starter was a spark from a power line. One tiny spark burned up 400,000 acres of Northern California. Incredible. It doesn't take a whole lot to start a raging fire, does it? I think the same thing in our families. It just takes a little spark. Somebody in your family who's divisive, that starts something that just seems to go on for a long time. It started minor, but continues to grow. For example, telling your wife that she looks fat in that dress is a fight starter. Don't do that. Just as a point of, if you hear nothing else today, don't do that. Maybe you have somebody in your family who's highly competitive. You know, they have to win at a game. No matter what game it is, they just get hyped. They have to win, and it starts a fight, right? It's like, calm down. It's Battleship. It's Monopoly. Just relax. It's good, right? But it starts a fight. Now, it could be something minor like that or something more major, like abuse. Or screaming something at someone that obviously you didn't mean, but now it's come out and you can't do anything about it, it seems. Fights start in families pretty easily. I put a few ideas. I'm going to give you here on the screens 5 different types of family members that might start fights in your family. See if you know any of these, recognize any of these. Maybe you are one of these. Here's the first one. It's the comparer. You have one of these in your family, the comparer. Somebody who's like, you're just like your mother. Or, I wish you were more like the kid down the street. He gets straight A's. I mean, these things start fights in families, the comparer. The second one I wrote is the historian. You have a historian in your family who brings up things that happened a long time ago and beats you with them like a piñata? You know what I'm talking about? They never forget. They're like, back 20 years ago, and they beat you with it. It starts fights. It just happens. The next one is the prideful. You have somebody proud in your family. The only way to do it is my way. You know anybody like that in your family? They start fights too, don't they? The prideful. The next one I wrote down was the selfish. Things are good as long as I get what I want. This family would work a lot better if you guys just did things my way. You have anybody in your family like that? Maybe it's you. We don't want to admit that. That's for the sinners out there. You guys, that nobody in here is like that. Nobody's selfish in their family. I will say this. I think selfishness is the number one cause of family fighting. I know it's certainly the number one cause of divorce, right? We get selfish about what we're not getting out of a marriage. Or we get selfish with the money or selfish with our time, and it all becomes about making ourselves happy. And what starts to happen? Marriages start to disintegrate. Same thing for families. Selfishness can tear apart a family. And I also put, how about this one? Do you have this person in your family? The brutally honest. You have somebody like that? This is my opinion. Deal with it. This is the uncle who wears the Make America Great Again cap to dinner and dares you to say something about it, right? Or the vegan who comes over to Thanksgiving dinner and you're all sitting there eating turkey and the vegan stands up and says, you know what? If you only knew how that turkey was destroyed, you'd never eat another bite of food in your mouth, ever. Now, I have nothing against vegans at all, nothing. I mean, more meat for us, right? I have nothing against vegans. But when you throw a big opinion out like that, you're waiting for someone to come at you, right? It's like, hey, this is who I am, deal with me. That's a fight starter in your family, isn't it? Happens all the time. One more, the perfectionist. Any perfectionists in your life, in your house? This is the person who wants all the books in the bookshelf by height. They alphabetize the breakfast cereal. This is that person, okay? Now, I will say this. I said there were 5, and you notice what number the perfectionist was? Number 6. If you notice that, that's you. You're the perfectionist, all right? Self-awareness is important if we're going to talk about forgiveness, right? These are people who can start fights in your family, and there's so many more. And these seem like exaggerations, but as soon as I said this type of person, maybe a name came to mind. It's like, yep, I know exactly who he's talking about. Oftentimes we don't blame ourselves. It doesn't take a whole lot to start a fight in a family. It doesn't have to be that way. I wrote a quote in my notes from Max Lucado, famous author, one of my favorites. He said this. He said, conflict or family conflict is inevitable, but combat is optional. That we have the option that when things spark up, caused by these fire starters or someone else, we have the option to fight or forgive. Are we going to be compassionate or combative? Are we going to seek unity or war? We have that decision sometimes every day. And there's a war in some of our families that's been raging for a long time. I put this in the notes. It's going to be up on the screens as well. Christmas unity. Again, we're after unity. Christmas unity with our family begins when we choose forgiveness over fighting. When we make the choice to say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to fight you over this. That we're going to seek peace. that we're going to come to terms here. And but the Bible is extremely clear when it comes with forgiving family. Ephesians 4:32, it'll be on the screens. This is kind of the heart of our time together today, the centerpiece. It says this. Paul says, instead, be what? Be kind to each other. Circle that in your brain. Be kind to each other. Keep that word. Tender-hearted and forgiving, just as God, through Christ, has forgiven you. What a powerful verse. You can leave it up just for a second. Look at the second half of that verse. Why should we be loving and kind and tender-hearted? Why? Because God has forgiven us. I don't know about you, but God's forgiven me for a lot. God's forgiven me for so much. But you know, forgiveness is one of those things that we love to receive. If we make a mistake, we love to get it. I forgive you, dude. Oh, great. You're awesome. Thank you. We don't like to give it. We like to hold grudges and bitterness and resentment. And we seek revenge. We greet people with a fist instead of open arms. But we love to receive it. So we're going to unpack how to do that better today. It's not going to be easy. In fact, I put this on the screen. It says forgiveness is a process and a gift. This is not something where today you're going to go home and go, you know what? I forgive all my family and everything's good. You can do that, but they're going to be like, for what? It's a process. My goal here today, and I'm going to ask you not just to listen with your head and your ears. I'm going to ask you to listen with your heart. My goal here today is to get the conversation started. For you to go home today and say, you know what? My father hurt me when I was 10, and I need to forgive him for that. I want to start that dialogue. I want to start building a bridge to the people in my family that have hurt me, that I've shut out for a long time. That's what we're going for today. Now, I'm going to tell you that what you're about to hear over the next few minutes is not going to be easy to hear. The devil's going to whisper to you that this does not apply to you and could never happen. But let me remind you, the devil is a liar. And spoiler alert, if you want to know, at the end of your Bible, guess what? The devil loses. Every time. That never changes. So the whisper that you're hearing in your soul to say, you know what, I can never forgive them for what they did. That pastor has no idea what that family member did to me. God says, no, the devil's a liar. You can begin the process to forgive. That's the unity we're talking about. Because you're going to sit around a Christmas table in just 10 days or so. And we're all going to smile, but secretly inside there's going to be somebody sitting around that table that we don't care much for because they've hurt us in the past. If we want to have a different Christmas, we want to have a unified, crystal clear Christmas, we need to start by working on forgiveness in our hearts. So, how do we do that? Well, I put a few gifts back behind me. You like opening presents? No, you don't? Okay, I'm just going to open them privately. So, let's see. Let's start by opening. Let's open up. Let's do this one. This is a good one. Any box shakers? Yeah, don't do that. Because what happens if they know that you shake the box, they're going to buy you cheaper things that don't break. So don't do that. Okay. Like opening presents. How many of you guys are slow gift wrap or gift owner? Like you want to save the paper? Like for no, me neither. All right, let's tear it. All right. And of course, it's never what's on the outside of the box, is it? Anybody ever double use a box and hide what really? Okay. Forgive my mess up here, but this is Christmas, so we're going to open it up. The first gift. Okay. The first gift is a mirror. It's a mirror. So the first person we're going to forgive in our family is the first person we see in our mirror. It's ourselves. And for some of us in the room today, this is the toughest person to forgive of all. How many of you like mirrors? You like mirrors? No, you don't like mirrors, do you? I hate them. You know what mirror I hate the worst? The one when you're trying on clothes in the fitting room after you pick them out, and you're like, I look hot, and then you get in there and you see yourself in that 17 mirror configuration they got, and I look like, 10 pounds of Brian in an 8-pound bag, and I'm like, there's no way that I look like this, but the mirrors don't lie, do they? They're very revealing of the truth. Well, I unwrap this because if we're going to have a unified Christmas, we've got to learn to start forgiving the person we see in the mirror every day. We have to learn to forgive ourselves. But a lot of us look in the mirror, what do we see? We see someone who's made a lot of mistakes. Maybe we had an abortion when we were younger. Maybe we did drugs and we're not proud of it. Maybe we abused our spouse, or maybe we cheated on a spouse, or maybe we see scars. You know what? When we see scars on our face, you know what God sees in that mirror? Those scars mean that you persevered through and you kept fighting on. We see mistakes. God says, hey, those are opportunities to learn. We see our past when I look in the mirror. God says, no, I know where I'm taking you. I want to challenge you. Next time you look in a mirror and you see yourself, look at it through a filter. You know what a filter is? you have to. If you use Instagram, I see your posts. You don't have that good of a complexion. Nobody does. You take the pucker selfies, like, right, so that it's all skinny here. I do the same thing. But look through a filter. But here's the filter I want you to use, Ephesians 2:10. Because Ephesians 2:10 tells us that when we look in the mirror through that filter, what does Ephesians 2:10 tell us? You are God's what? Masterpiece. You are the best work God can do. Now, I don't know about you, but when I look in the mirror, I don't see the best work God can do. I see flaws. My wife can tell me I'm the most handsome guy in the world, but you know what I see in this mirror? I see a broken dude. But when I look through the filter of Ephesians 2:10, I realize, yeah, I've made some mistakes, but I'm the best work God can do. And that God unconditionally loves me no matter what. And God knew all the stuff I was going to do, and he made me anyway. Forgiving ourselves is the first step to forgiving our family. How have I hurt people? I put this truth in my notes that, making mistakes doesn't make you broken. Making mistakes makes you human. All of us today in this room have done something that we're not proud to look in the mirror and see. But God says, you are my masterpiece. I don't put conditions on the love, God says, that I have for you. But man, it's so tempting to not want to forgive ourselves for what we did in our past. I think there are some easy ways to work through this. First thing we need to do is admit we've made some mistakes. Look at this verse in Romans chapter 3, verse 23. You might know it. It says, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Mentally circle the word all. That comes from the Greek meaning what? All. Right? I'm telling you, it's deep in here. I'm a theologian through and through. All means all. That means you. That means the person in your family who's hurt you. All of us have sinned and fall short of God's glory. All of us have made mistakes. All of us are imperfect. We just got to say, you know what? I made some mistakes. And then where do we go from there? We have to repair what we can. Fix what you can. If you're able to talk to the person that you've hurt or has hurt you, have that conversation. Oftentimes that person has passed away. We don't have that opportunity. And in cases like that, I always tell people, go to God with it and just say, God, I hurt them. Or they hurt me. God, please just help me get past that. It's a hard conversation to have. And the third idea I put down there was move forward. Paul, I love what he writes in Philippians chapter 3, verse 13. Paul says, but one thing I do, forget what's behind and strain forward to what is what? What is ahead. You got to move forward. But some of us in the room today, we just can't forgive ourselves for who we used to be. Today, you sit here today, Promise Life, and you are the end result of a lot of decisions. From what you ate for lunch yesterday, to how you performed in school, to how you treat each other. And you've made some mistakes along the way. But forgiving yourself is key to being able to forgive your family later on. I love that verse. But that's not all we're going to do. We're going to forgive some more. So ready to unwrap another present? Let's do it. Let's see, which one do I want to unwrap? This one. Okay, good. This one. This one's in a box. If you give people gifts in a box, it's not as much fun as giving people wrapped gifts, is it? Like, open. Don't do that. But I'm going to unwrap this one. Okay. I don't know if you all can see this. You know what this is? I'm going to hold it up there. See what that is? It's a ring. Not just a ring. It's a wedding ring. The next person in our family that we're going to learn how to forgive is our spouse. These, by the way, these don't get easier. Just saying. Just smile. Just nod. You with me? How many are here today? Raise your hand. Most. Okay, good. All right. We're going to learn how to forgive our spouse. This is tough. Now, a couple weeks ago, I did a wedding for my wife's cousin. Her name's Lisa, and her new husband, Billy. In fact, I did Carla and Derek's wedding. And both of those weddings were lit. They were amazing. Yeah, I know. Middle-aged guy saying lit from the stage is weird. Just go with it. My daughter tells me that's what kids say, so I'm throwing it out there. I snatched that wedding's wig. I got those papers. All those memes, that's all me. Whew, I feel better. I purged all that meme out. I did a wedding. Long story short, every wedding I do, I tell the same story of the prodigal son. You've seen it maybe in Scripture before. Jesus tells a story of a boy who wants to go out and spend his inheritance early. His father's still alive, but he says, Dad, before you die, can I have that money early? His dad says, I guess so, and gives him the money, and he goes out and he spends it. And he doesn't just spend it, he blows it, the story's told. Wastes it. In fact, it gets to the point where the boy has run out of cash and he's eating out of a trough where you feed animals. He's embarrassed, he's broke, And he knows he's going to have to go home to his dad. And he expects his dad to be furious with him. And the dad every day goes down to the end of the driveway waiting for his son to come home. He just can't wait for his son to return. And let's see dad's reaction. Once the boy finally comes back, let's see dad's reaction. It might surprise you. It's on the screens. It's from Luke chapter 15, verse 22. So the father comes home, hugs his son. He says to his servants, quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Interesting reaction from dad, isn't it? Not punishment, not go to your room, not you blew it. He says put a robe on him, put sandals on him, but why the ring? You ever thought about that in the story? It's kind of strange. I think it's because every time the son looks down at that ring, he's going to be reminded that his father loves him and his father forgives him. Now, if you're married today, please take a look. If you're wearing a wedding ring, look down at your wedding ring just a second. I think the reason you wear that ring is for that same reason. That every time you look down at your wedding ring, you're reminded that you too have a father that loves you and forgives you. And I'm not talking about an earthly father necessarily. God. That every time I look down at this ring, the reason that I need to forgive my spouse is because God loves and forgives me. Right back to Ephesians 4:32. I forgive and love. Why? Because God has forgiven me for so much. I can forgive my spouse not because they've earned it, not because they deserve it, not because they've even asked for it. I forgive my spouse. Why? Because I love them. And a long time ago, I took some vows to my wife that went something like this: to have and to hold, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, till what? Death do you part. Everybody take a big breath. If you're still breathing, those vows still apply, right? That's why we forgive. Because sometimes in the better or worse scenario, it's worse. And we look down at that wedding ring, and I forgive my wife, or you forgive your husband, or whatever the case is there. We forgive our spouses, not because they deserved it, not even because they're right, but because we love them. We have a Father who loves and forgives us, and we took a vow that even in the bad times, we need to forgive. I hear it all the time. You know, he cheated on me, or she lied to me, or all that. And I've seen weddings come back. I've seen marriages being restored from multiple affairs. I've seen, divorce decrees sitting on judges' desks that get torn up. As long as you're still breathing, you can still fight for your marriage. But it starts with forgiveness. It starts with forgiveness. And put this on the screen in your notes. Being right isn't as important as being together. You may be 100% in the right. But the goal here, it's like the goal in this entire series, is family unity. Coming together. This is not easy to do. You know, I talk to a lot of couples that have been married a long time, and I always ask them, what's the secret to your long marriage? My wife and I have been married just over 25 years, but there are couples that maybe even in the room today that have doubled that. And I always ask them, what's the secret? And you know what they tell me? When it's broken, you fix it. You don't throw it away. That's the secret. Keep your vows. It sounds like, duh, of course. Easier said than done. So I want to challenge you, church. I want to challenge you to give your spouse a very different type of Christmas present. Sit them down and tell them, I know all the stuff that's gone on in the past, but I forgive you. And then when you pick them up off the floor, you prop them back up in the chair and you say, I love you with all my heart. Because they're going to be stunned that you would say that to them. Because here's the thing, the devil wants your marriage to be broken. He's perfectly okay with you being roommates and not soulmates. Because you know what starts to happen? When we get into these marriage situations and we have conflict, very often there's no resolution, there's no forgiveness. And what do your kids see? They see fighting without healing. And the devil loves that. Why? Because not only does he ruin your marriage, but down the road when your kids get married, guess what happens to them? When they start to fight, they divorce. They don't work it out because they haven't seen it modeled. He's perfectly okay with ruining multiple generations of marriage. Church, we can change that this Christmas. This is not an easy thing to do. Because, again, in our minds, we're thinking if I admit and I say I forgive you, it means they were right. That's not what I'm saying at all. What it does say is, you know what, I want to move past this. I want to start healing. I want to move forward. It's a process, but you got to start. That's where God wants us to be. So there's the second gift. Let's open up a third one. It is this one. Let's open up the little one. I'm going to shake it because it's fun. I have to act like I don't know what's in these, but I really do. This one's lighter. Anybody ever use a whole roll of tape on one package? You know, and you get these like super taped packages that take you forever. All right, let's see what's in here. Again, please forgive my mess, Pastor Frank. It's just I don't know where else to put the paper. Let's see. Okay. You know what this is? It's a baby rattle, right? Who do you think we're going to forgive next? Not baby. Baby's good. We're going to forgive our parents. You would jot that down if you're taking notes. How do we forgive our parents? Oscar Wilde once said, children begin by loving their parents. After a time, they judge them. Rarely, if ever, do they forgive them. Because forgiving our parents is tough for a lot of us in the room today. Maybe we grew up in a tough house. Maybe we're still in that tough house. Maybe we grew up in a step situation where there's a step parent coming in and they love those kids and you were forgotten about. Maybe you grew up in a house where there was mental, physical, verbal abuse. How could I ever forget and forgive my parents? Well, we're going to unpack that in just a minute. As I was studying for this section, I ran across a psychologist quote that said this: forgiving your parents is the core task of adulthood. For us to pass over from being children to an adult, we need to forgive what's happened in our homes. Some of us are sitting here at 50 plus and we still haven't done that yet. We're still hung up on things that happened a long time ago in a house that our parents have long since moved on to heaven. And yet we wake up every morning bitter and resentful for the way we were raised. Well, the Bible tells us how to deal with parents. In Exodus 20, one of the big 10 commandments says, honor your what? It's right on the screens. Father and mother. Honor your father and your mother. Let's skip down to Romans 12. Paul says this: do things in such a way that everyone can see you are what? Honorable. Say it cheerfully. We're honorable, right? And what? That everyone can see you're honorable. Next screen, please. Do all that you can to live in peace. Big words there. We have to honor our parents and be honorable and live in peace with them. But Pastor, you have no idea what I dealt with. I mean, am I supposed to just fake it like it didn't happen? How do I honor a mother or a father that treated me the way they did? Am I supposed to forget it and look past it? No. The Bible tells us to honor. You can honor your parent even at its core. The most basic way to honor your parent, even if you can't forgive the person, you can honor the position. You can say, thank you, Mom and Dad, for giving me life. Thanks for bringing me into the world. That may be all you can thank them for, but it's a start. And if things get heated at home, we need to be the peacemakers, not the fire starters. Not the gasoline, but the water on the fire when it comes to our parents. Not easy to do. I just want to give you some food for thought. Because this is when I wrote this, I'm like, really, God, I got to say this? And God says, yes, Brian, you do. So I want to give you some food for thought if you're wrestling with this idea of forgiving your parents. Maybe your parents were doing the best they knew how to do. Maybe your parents were raising you the way they were raised. Or maybe your parents had good intentions, but the execution just wasn't there. Those are not excuses, by the way. Those are reminders that your parents, that my parents, are human beings. They're people, and they made a lot of mistakes. Maybe you grew up in a home with your parents didn't make any mistakes. That's awesome. Praise God for that. But if you grew up in a home where there was a constant tension and you felt unimportant and didn't matter, and you were raised by human beings. If you're a parent in the room today, and I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand if you are, but do you think you're raising your kids perfectly? We all do, right? I think I did. I think I did a pretty good job with my daughter. But you know the evidence is going to be when my daughter sits in a chair like this and hears a sermon like this and goes, you know what? Thinking back to the way my wife and I raised her, did I always give her the time she needed? Did I always share kind words? Children are the judge of that. Well, if you're children and you are children of someone, you have to decide, is it time for me to start forgiving my parents? There's a lot of people who get stuck here. They spend their whole life as a victim. I can't commit because my mom didn't show up to a play in second grade. I'm 47. At 47 years of age, I'm angry because my dad was angry when I was growing up. I want to leave you this thought. If that's you, if you find yourself in this kind of loop, it's time to stop blaming your parents for the person you've become. I'm going to say it again. It's time to stop blaming your parents for who you've become. You in this room today are grown. You're making grown-up decisions every day. And I put this in my notes. I want to follow it up with this thought. Start becoming the person you always wanted them to be. If they were unforgiving and they challenged you and they never had time, be that person for your kid. Break that generational breakdown, that change. Say, hey, I want to be who I always wanted them to be. That's typically not what happens, though. We end up copying them. And it's generation after generation of flying off the handle and anger and hurtful words. Stop blaming your parents for who you are and move on. Now, I say that not flippantly. I say that with all the sincerity in my heart because it's something that I'm wrestling with. Move forward. I grew up in a home that looked absolutely great on the outside. All the kids in the neighborhood wanted to come to my house because my mom was the room mother, my dad was a soccer coach. Externally looked fantastic, but when my friends left and the door closed, every day of my life I faced alcoholism and physical abuse. Every day of my life. I don't share that for you to feel sorry for me, but I share that because I want to convince you that I had to make a choice just like you do. My parents are both gone now. I had to decide, do I want to blame everything I'm doing wrong today at 47 on parents that treated me like that when I was 12? I've chosen to forgive and move forward. It is not an easy walk. But when I made that decision, sometimes I got to remind myself I've made that decision. And I said, you know what? They hurt me, but I'm going to move forward with my life. It's very liberating. And it really helps me have better relationships with not only my spouse and my family, but you all as well. Because that bitterness just bleeds over into other parts of your life and you don't realize it. And you get angry at people who have no right to be treated like that. And it has nothing to do with them. It's stuff that you haven't given up from your past. That's number 3. Let's open up one more gift. This is our last one. It's the biggest. It's the fun one. This is the one, anybody ever grew up in a house that had like that one extra gift, like, oops, Santa forgot one, and they run and grab it, and it's the big one? All right. Santa forgot this one. We're going to open up this together. Let's see. Let's see what's in here. Oh, my goodness. Okay, I know what this is. This is a proper football jersey. Anybody know where this is from? Liverpool, thank you. Got culture right here in the front. Extra heaven point, right? Liverpool, my favorite. Anybody, any soccer fans? Anybody watch soccer? Awesome, thank you. Thank you, culture. No, stop. We're going to have a special prayer service for our Manchester United brethren right after this today. No, you know why I packed this? It doesn't matter what jersey this is. I'm a big Liverpool fan, but no matter what jersey it is, it reminds us that when you wear a jersey like this, you're part of a team. We're going to talk about forgiving those that we haven't talked about so far. Your grandmother, your sister, your brother, your uncle, your cousin, not your spouse and not your parents, but everybody else that wears your jersey, that has your blood, right? Now, in 1980, I was 9 years old, and that was the year of the Miracle on Ice. It wasn't an ice capade. That was a hockey game, okay, back in the Olympics. And the U.S. were highly favored to lose to the Russians. Russians hadn't been beaten in decades. In the United States, were a bunch of ragtag college kids that came together to try to play hockey against them. Maybe you saw the movie Miracle. Hopefully, okay, yeah. But 1980 was that's the original game. In fact, the United States not only went on to beat the Russians in a miracle game, the biggest underdog story ever to that point, maybe since, but they went on to beat Finland to win the gold medal. And there's a scene in the movie, if you've seen it, where Kurt Russell, who's playing Coach Herb Brooks, the real-life coach of the team, he basically tells them with their jersey, the name on the front of your jersey is more important than the name on the back. In other words, your team is more important than you. What you do as a team is more important than what you get out of the team. I think the same thing in our families, isn't it? You have people in your family that have your blood. They wear your jersey. There's a lot of parallels between winning teams and winning families. I love this verse. It's in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 2. It says, always be humble and gentle. Big one coming up. Be patient with each other, making allowance for each other's faults because of what? Because of your love. Does that sound like your family? Gentle, patient, and loving? If it does, praise God. For the other 99% of us here, it's a challenge, isn't it? Got to be patient and loving. When we look at this jersey, we think, okay, winning teams and winning families have three things in common. I'm going to give them to you quickly. Number one, winning teams learn to get along with the players that they have. When the team all came together, the players didn't get a chance to pick who they played with. They just showed up. And here you got a bunch of college kids all getting together. They didn't know each other, but they had to learn, okay, you got this strength, you got this strength. Let's learn to get along. In your family, did you pick your sister? Oftentimes, no. How about your parents? Did you choose them? How about that uncle who always smells like cheese? Did you choose him? No, you didn't. But you got to learn to get along, right? It's Christmas. Unity, right? We're all in the same room. We have to learn to get along with the players we have. That's what happens to winning teams. It happens to winning families. Second thing I put down in my notes, not only do we have to do that, we have to have each other's backs when we're challenged. As a family, you wear the jersey they wear. You have to have each other's back. In hockey, if they're noticing one of the players getting bullied, they all go over there and bully the bully, right? They took care of it physically. When I was growing up, I did that. I had a neighbor named Tyler, and every day Tyler would come over to play with us. Well, one day Tyler decided to come over and shove my brother into a wall. Now, I've shoved my brother into a wall hundreds of times. That's my job as his brother, to shove him into walls. Well, not the only job, but that's one I took very, very seriously. And I can shove my brother into a wall, but if somebody else does it, it is on, like the proverbial Donkey Kong. It is on. Now, Tyler came over, shoved my brother. I fought. The only reason I share this fighting story with you is it's the only fight in my life I ever won. Well, I hit him, and he ran and told his mom. His mom told my mom, and I got punished. But the point is, I defended my brother. And your family, sometimes you need to defend your family members. And I don't mean just physically. I mean, if somebody's talking bad about them, stand up for them. Do you always agree with your family? No, but they have your blood, your jersey. They're on your team. Have their back. The Bible says that's what brings family unity at Christmas time. Look out for each other. Stand up for each other. Don't start rumors. Squish them. Stand up for each other together. One last one. Winning teams and winning families realize that teams don't stay the same forever, do they? 2018's team picture looks different than 2017's team picture. Just ask the Cleveland Cavaliers, they'll tell you. Poor LeBron's over in LA now, if you're into basketball. That team picture has changed quite a bit. Well, guess what? Sometimes in a family, ours does too. People move away. They divorce. God forbid they pass away. And you know, we've convinced ourselves that we have all the time in the world to forgive our family members, that they'll always be around, that we're always going to be able to have that conversation. And the fact is, the picture changes. People move on. The only thing that hurts worse than having this conversation where you sit down with somebody in your family and say, I forgive you for what you've done to me, is when you can't have that conversation with them anymore. I do a lot of funerals, and in a funeral, I hear it time and time again. They come up to me and they say, Pastor, I wish I had 5 more minutes with that person so we could get things right. The truth is, we don't know how long we have. You wear the same jersey. Their blood is your blood. They're your family. This Christmas is the time to start mending that fence. This Christmas is the time to sit down and have that really difficult conversation. Again, starting the process of unity and forgiveness. Not easy to do. James 4 says it this way. While you do not even know what will happen tomorrow, James says, what is your life? You're a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. That's true, isn't it? If you've heard nothing else I've told you today, hear this. Keep a short account with your family. If they've hurt you, forgive them and let them know you've done so. But don't wait. Don't wait. So we forgive ourselves, the mirror. We forgive our spouse, the ring. We forgive our parents through the rattle, and we forgive the rest of our family through the jersey. They're our blood. They're our team. With all my heart, church, I want this Christmas to be different for you and your family. I want you to have that unity that you see in other families. Can I possibly have that in my own? But I think the greatest thing you can give your family, the greatest gift of all, is simply this. heart. Give your family this Christmas the gift of you. Unconditional love. I love you, family, not because you haven't hurt me. I love you because, hey, we're family. We haven't always got along. There's been some problems along the way, but I love you unconditionally. Maybe this is the Christmas that you start trusting again. To not let the decision that one person in your family has made, a poor choice for sure, forever divide you. I'm going to learn how to genuinely trust again. Or maybe truly it's complete forgiveness of someone that you love. You got to start by forgiving yourself. But to achieve true Christmas unity, for that crystal clear Christmas, it just takes someone willing to take the first step. Let's watch this together. So I guess I'd ask the question, are you willing to take that first step? Are you willing to send a text message that says, we need to talk? Maybe it's a coffee or I don't know what it looks like for you. But it's critical to start that healing process in our hearts. We say we want to have a joy-filled Christmas, but there's so much bitterness and anger amongst family members. Let's stop pretending and fake smiling and really mend those fences. It may not be easy, but church, if you're willing to take that first step, I would be honored to pray for you. The enemy, as I said before, is going to try to stand up against this. He's perfectly okay with division. But again, greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. You can do this. I'll be praying for you as you do. Let's pray together. Father, I come to you now, and as hard as this message is to hear for a lot of folks, I know, God, that you are the God of the impossible. That, Father, you haven't stopped doing miracles. That, God, you have the capability, Father, of softening hearts, even as we sit here today. Father, I pray that each and every family represented in this room today, right here at Promise Life, that, God, you put a name on their heart of someone that they need to forgive for the way they've been hurt. And they would wrestle with this. And that they have the strength and the courage and the right words to say at the perfect time to look a family member in the eye and say, I forgive you and I love you. Can we move forward? God, I pray for special blessing, strength, healing, restoration. Father, maybe that person we need to forgive, we see every single morning in the bathroom mirror. Help us to forgive ourselves, to get past how we've hurt ourselves, our reputation. And God, as we move forward into a world that doesn't understand forgiveness, help us be the light in this area. It's important to hear a message like this, but God, it's so much more important to act on it. I pray with everything in my heart that you would help all of us, have the greatest Christmas we've ever had because of the family unity. We'll say the words, God, but you'll change the heart. And we give you all the praise and all the glory for what you're about to do in all these families and beyond. In Jesus' name that I pray. Amen. Thank you guys so much. Pastor Frank?
Can we stand up and give it up for Pastor Brian? Thank you, Mr. Brian. What an incredible message. Thank you so much.